Storms, cataclysms, convulsions of nature, however mysterious and lawless at first sight they may seem, are only harmonious notes in the song of creation. Storm giants are the wielders of this paradox. The storm then breaks, and knowledge sings. Long before kingdoms rose or empires fell, before gods took names and dragons claimed dominions, the storm giants watched. Their courts lay hidden in clouded halls above the world and beneath its deepest seas, the maelstroms of long-forgotten history. It was in these halls that King Hecaton ruled. High King of the Storm Giants, it was he who held the voice of Anam the All-Father. Through his power and majesty, he was beckoned as the wielder of the Wormskull throne. Hecaton's court was a marvel of grace and gravitas. Maelstrom, the royal sanctuary, was a place of oracles and currents, star chambers and tidal thrones. But even in such a divine place, discord within the royal lineage found its root. Hecaton's daughters, Sarissa, Mirren, and Nim, each bore different visions of the future. Sarissa, wise beyond her years, sought unity and understanding. Mirren, tempestuous and prideful, longed for conquest and status. Nim, cold and calculating, whispered behind closed doors and moved pawns with precision. The storm giant court, once still as the deep oceans of the trackless sea, grew riven with silent currents. Then the queen, Neri, beloved of the king and speaker for the small folk, was slain, and Hecaton, the wise king, disappeared without a trace. They searched long and far throughout the Sword Coast, but his counsel was lost, and for it, sorrow was found within the hearts of the storm giants. Some whispered he had fled, others feared he had fallen. In truth, he had been betrayed, taken aboard the scry-proofed vessel of Morkoth, a prisoner of the Kraken Society and their dragon conspirator, Imrith, the ancient blue worm who had infiltrated the court in disguise. With the Wormskull throne empty, chaos bloomed throughout the giants. Factions within the court grew emboldened. The Kraken Society extended its reach, and Imrith's manipulations deepened. Her control over her own form was ancient, disguising herself as one of the court. And all the while, chaos stirred, and as a ship is rudderless without its captain, the storm giants found themselves directionless, and for it, giants rose up, causing chaos throughout the Sword Coast, and the sea raged. Into this maelstrom came 4 mortal adventurers: Magna Mountain Tamer, a Goliath barbarian, White Dragon Slayer, and conqueror of the Trial of the Spine of the World; Jinzik, Gnome Artificer, genius tinkerer from Candlekeep, loyal companion to Magnor and bearer of storm-forged gauntlets of his own design; Vexira, a tiefling warlock, pact-bound to knowledge beyond time and stars; Thorn Underleaf, a halfling druid, speaker to the tides, whose will had calmed hurricanes and stirred krakens from slumber. They came not as diplomats or champions, but as seekers of truth. And the sea, ancient and jealous, sought to test them. To reach the truth, they would first have to survive the trackless sea, a place not charted by maps but remembered in nightmares from those along the Sword Coast. Ports in Luskan spoke of ancient horrors of sovereignty. Krakens, who controlled the waves and spoke whispers into rum-filled taverns. It is said the stars turned their gaze upon ships that entered north of the Moonsea. That compasses leaked salt from their dials, and ships vanished as if swallowed by the dreams of ancient leviathans. Upon its waters, the adventurers faced trials carved from forgotten beasts, namely, 1 dragon turtle and a sea hag who didn't like the look of Jinzik's left eye. Phantom ships, long drowned, sailed beside them with crews of shadow and bone. Sirens whispered in the voices of the 4, almost dragging them overboard on one ill-favoured night. The sea stilled to mirror glass. and the ship passed over a sleeping god, a mass of coral and flesh so vast it blotted the sea floor. Throughout the ocean, whirlpools opened like eyes, and the waves howled in forgotten tongues. They came to where their map indicated. Thorn spoke to the tides, calming their fury, moving elements of control water and shape water to stem the tidal flow. Jinzik's devices, etched with runes from the forbidden sections of Candlekeep, created an opening, the illusion of the whirlpool slowly revealing itself. Vexira bargained with the nearby spirits, those bound to sailors lost in shipwrecks, earning safe passage with secrets and sacrifice. And Magna stood at the prow with axe in hand, daring the sea or something worse to strike. And at journey's end, through veil and illusion, they beheld it, a ship, magically sealed but almost ancient in design, a ship that should not be, adrift, in a circle of water currents raging without repute, and within it, the Storm King's prison. The sea had tested them, and they had bested this examination. They met with Sarissa, and although they were weary, they convinced her of their purpose and their intellect, so she in her wisdom entrusted them with her father's fate. Armed with the Coralnor scepter, they hunted across sea and storm, through song and smoke, until they reached the Morkoth, a vessel that resembled a giant squid. They travelled through the hull of the ship, dispatching assassins and warriors, until they freed the bound Storm King in chains. But the sea would not give him up so easily. The sea moved, jolted, convulsed, and then the Kraken rose, a beast older than the gods themselves, called to devour prophecy and drown legacy. As the adventurers fought to escape, tentacles the size of towers cracked the sky, thunderheads split, currents reversed, the ship buckled. It was then that Hecaton stood, unchained, with power, connection to the elemental chaos, a cataclysm now released, as if the storms themselves heeded his calls. With one hand, he sundered the heavens, calling down lightning from the bones of creation. With the other, he struck the Kraken with a force that ruptured several of its tentacles. Magna met the beast's limbs with axe and fist, cleaving deep as stormlight flared around him. Jinzik, his inventions whirling with divine thunder, launched lances of lightning into the Kraken's eye. Thorn summoned the sea itself, his connection to the elemental chaos showing its form, binding the beast in kelp and currents, while Vexira's curses rained black hail, her patron answering her calls, and with it, madness engulfed the Kraken's mind. As the shattered remains of the creature sank into silence, King Hecaton rose from the sea. His voice echoed across the deep. The sky cleared, the ocean stilled. The storm had answered its true king. They returned to Maelstrom with thunder in their wake. There, in the great hall, Sarissa stood tall. And when Imrith's lies were unveiled, the blue worm hissed in fury and vanished in a cyclone of wind and sand. But the storm giants would not remain silent, the betrayal seeping deep into their hearts. A family once broken, but now healed and reunited. Hecaton and his daughters marched alongside the mortal four, across the trackless sea and into the desert of death. There, among the shattered ruins of Anarok, the worm awaited with her brood, bound in enchantments and protected by storm-warped constructs. But no deception would shield her now. Her lies were unveiled, a queen of shadows no more. The battle was a cataclysm. Imrith soared and screamed, her breath a lance of pure lightning, her coils wrapped in enchantment magic. But Hecaton met her, as giant once did in the ancient tales of dragons and giants. The 1,000-year war now returned to this very moment. His voice cracked the desert floor as he went fist to claw with the chromatic worm. Magna brought her low with a leaping strike that shook the bones of the dunes, his enchanted returning great axe, fashioned by Jinzik himself, arcing through the air like a comet, cleaving scale and claw alike. Jinzik's cannon constructs danced beneath the dragon's wings, projecting arcane fire that glowed akin to bottled constellations. Thorn rode the wind, turning sand into spears of elemental force, while Vexira climbed Imrith's spine like a shadow, casting hex upon hex until the worm reeled in pain. And when the final blow fell, it was struck in a storm of retribution and ancient pain. In the twilight after Ostoria's fall, when the world cracked and the glory of giant kind was scattered to the winds, Annam the All-Father, creator of the giants and shaper of mountains, turned his gaze away. Wrathful and wounded, he forsook both their realm and blood, vowing never to return his sight to the world until his children had reclaimed their ancient majesty, until the giants rose once more as sovereigns of creation. In his silence, the giants endured, and in their endurance, they remembered. Though Annam vanished beyond the veil of the divine, his name is still spoken with reverence, carved into stone, etched in lightning, and carried upon the wind. Yet, it is not to him alone that they offer glory. From Annam's lineage sprang the Ordning and its divine scions, gods who embody each caste, each calling, each truth within the giant's soul. Chief among these for the storm giants is Stronmaus, the Thunderer, laughing Sky Lord and cloud-borne prince. He is the true form of lightning, the whisper of fate in the thunderhead, the eye of the storm. To him, the storm giants raise their eyes, their songs, their silence. He teaches to actualize the wisdom that self-denial and suffering bring, a connection to the fundamentals of Faerun's elemental chaos. Highest within the sacred Ordning are the storm giants. The place of the Stormborn is earned not by war or by wealth, but through insight. Their thrones and kingdoms are woven from prophecies long read. More often, though, these giants watch the rise and fall of nations and interpret supernatural omens, interfering in the world only when they're needed most. While fire giants forge, frost giants hunt, and hill giants feast, the storm giants witness the history of the world. They chart the patterns of lightning across the sky, interpret the dreams hidden in breaking tides, and decipher the murmured will of the stars. Their wisdom has been sculpted and sung along the echoes of creation, when dragons warred with their kind, when men rose to godhood, and when the very weave of magic lost its place in the world. The eldest map is known to their kind. When their kingdoms spanned the world, the shifting harmonies of the elemental planes have been charted. Their oracles speak rarely, but when they voice their knowledge, an ancient wisdom is gained. Ah, gentle reader, it is I, Volothamp Geddarm. Welcome to my guide, a monumental musing on storm giants, clouds of wisdom, thunder of will, the storm giants, a vivid account of the most majestic, most mysterious, and most meteorologically themed of giant kind, by Volothamp Geddarm, chronicler of wonders, surviving victim of skyborne hubris, and amateur cloud sommelier. Chapter 10 of Omens and Oblivion. Even among giants, the Stormborn are vast, tall as towers, and silent as the sea floor. Their skin bears the hues of roiling sky and distant thunderheads, pale violet, cobalt blue, or seafoam grey. In rare signs, the skin turns deep amethyst. Their hair, like a blue or black lightning caught within a current. Their eyes shimmer like emerald stars, or flash with silver when stirred to anger or omen-seeking. Some scribes would recant that to meet a storm giant's gaze is to glimpse the storm that sleeps beneath the world. Their gait is silent, cushioned by the very air around them. Their lungs are vaults of pressure, designed to draw breath from both the thin air atop the sky's spires and the crushing depths of the abyssal sea. Their hearts, pulsing with slow, inexorable might, sound like thunder trapped within their flesh. Many tomes write of their blood, that it runs rich with a galvanic charge, and more lightning than liquid courses throughout their veins. Their muscle coils beneath their skin like braided rope, honed for measured, absolute force. A storm giant's tendons are harder than stone. They do not fray under even the hardest pressure from dragonkind. Ancient glyphs line their skin, infused with a mesh that absorbs lightning, melds with thunder, and gives protection against the cold of the deep. Their bones bear crystalline lattices and hollowed cores, granting them both buoyancy and density, so they may walk beneath oceans or scale mountaintops without effort. Now, I shall share with you a secret, one rarely uttered outside storm giant circles, and only learned after a particularly enlightening conversation with a priest of Strommouse, conducted while I clung to a storm-tossed mast and screamed questions into the wind. The Tempest Node, a second heart, or perhaps a sacred core gifted by Strommouse himself. It pulses with captive ether, a living engine of elemental resonance. When a storm giant is roused, in fury, devotion, or clarity, the node flares, cloaking their body in mist, crackling arcs, and the raw breath of the sky. I once saw such a flare during a storm giant's sorrow, and I assure you, entire flocks of birds wept and turned back mid-migration. The storm giant's mind is a sea of stillness and symbol. Their brains are highly folded, layered with lobes attuned to arcane harmony, astral drift, and the hidden geometry of fate. They do not remember in words, they remember in tides, a connection to the phlogiston of creation. Thought itself echoes like thunder through the corridors of their minds. Their metabolism is geological in scale. They rarely sleep, and when they do, their dreams manifest as storms, currents, and celestial alignments. Their bodies cool in peace, warm in purpose. Even their sweat becomes a soft vapor, and when wounded, they bleed in radiant flashes like quicksilver rain. They do not compete in the Ordning as others do. Instead, they observe from afar, tracing the signs that echo from Anim's long-lost favor. They await for the divine return of their father, his wisdom and grace always ever-present within their mind. In crashing tides, they see the deaths of kings. In curling clouds, they foretell plagues and peace. In the silence between lightning, they find ancient truths long lost to mortal minds. They have watched empires rise and fall, seen gods clash and fade within the second sundering, and mark the pulse of the cosmos itself across centuries. Yet do they rally armies? Do they march like Zalto's firebrands or scheme like the cloud-borne aristocracy? No, for to a storm giant, mortal conflict is fleeting, like the breeze on a canyon wall, or the ocean's patient push against ancient cliffs waiting for erosion to seep in. But those who seek them in humility and purpose may be granted secrets vast enough to reshape fate. Yes, I too once thought this merely poetic fancy, until I witnessed a storm giant, seated on a throne of emeralds within the deeps of the Moonsea, name the exact day a Kalashite prince would choke on a pearl, and then request a nap. Yet let none forget, a storm giant angered is the end of a horizon, a bleak unfurling of the end of your days. Take it from Volo, who once offered an ill-timed pun to a frowning storm matron, and found himself launched, politely but firmly, into the next barony over. Storm giants speak to their own kind rarely, only when omens converge, or in the wake of dreams too great for one soul alone. When a child is born, mother and father remain together until it is grown. Then they part, each returning to their solitary sanctum beneath the sea or sky. To others, they're a myth. Some mortals build shrines in their name, mistaking their insight for divinity. Others sing hymns to their wisdom. And though most storm giants remain aloof, some who are worshipped too long may forget humility and hunger for control. A storm giant enthralled by adoration is no longer a prophet, and seen lesser by their own kin. Chapter 11. The thunder in their veins, the storm at their fingertips. Now then, brave reader, Just when you thought storm giants couldn't possibly get more dramatic, more wondrous, more cosmically inconvenient, allow me to describe their methods of battle, or rather, their ballets of obliteration, their waltzes of weather wrath. For when a storm giant raises their hand, the sky listens. The wrath of a storm giant is an elemental fury. Some scribes had recently thought that all storm giants wove spells as wizards do. That is factually incorrect. And you can trust Volo to have your back in absolute fact. Their magic is older. It is inherited from sky, from sea, from Strongmouse himself. A divine gift from both Anam and the Laughing God. When a storm giant raises their hand, lightning answers. Bolts leap from their fingers as if unleashed from within, arcs of thought and judgment made visible to the would-be victim. In moments of absolute conviction or fury, entire storms or blades of pure lightning emerge, leaving naught but an echo of defiance in its wake. Rain gathers when they grieve. Winds rise when they doubt. Thunder answers when they speak. They are the weather. Many druids admire their control over the elemental fury, for their moods bleed into the sky above and the tides below. Now, dearest reader, you may be asking, but Volo, surely even storm giants must one day perish. Even tempests must tire. And I, with a somber nod and a cape singed by static, reply, not necessarily. To forestall the inevitable, some storm giants approaching the end of their natural lifespans seek an escape from death. They plumb the depths of their powerful connection to the elements and disperse themselves into nature, transforming into semi-conscious storms. The blizzard that rages unendingly around a mountain peak, the vortex that swirls around a remote island, or the thunderstorm that howls ceaselessly up and down a rugged coastline, could, in fact, be the undying form of a storm giant clinging to existence. A storm giant quintessent sheds their armor and weapons, but gains the power to form makeshift weapons out of thin air. When the giant has no further use of these elemental weapons, or when the giant dies, the weapons disappear into the ether. A storm giant quintessent can revert to their true giant form temporarily, and can maintain that form long enough for the giant to communicate with a mortal or defend their home. And so I say, should you find yourself trapped in an unnatural squall, winds howling like an ancient song, thunder rolling like old grief above your head, stop, speak, offer respect. You may just be standing in the presence of a storm giant who has chosen eternity over their extinction. Or you may be standing in a particularly aggressive weather pattern. Either way, I suggest you back away slowly. Now gather close, dear reader, for we dive, quite literally, into the most sacred, most secret, and most absurdly inaccessible sanctuary of storm giant kind. And no, I don't mean a poetic ruin atop a thunder-peaked mountain, or some windy eyrie where birds make theologians of us all. I mean beneath the sea, beneath 3,000 feet of crushing, ink-black, whale-haunted ocean. Chapter 12. Storm Giant Lairs, Sanctuaries of Storm and Silence. Among all the sanctuaries known to storm giants, one surpasses all others: the breath of the deep, the pulse of prophecy, the cradle of the worm-skull throne. Hidden beneath the endless spread of the trackless sea, Maelstrom lies nearly 3,000 feet below the surface, an oath of the storm. It is here that King Hecaton rules, here that tides are commanded and the Ordning is sanctified, and here that the weight of the world itself bows in reverence. Those who approach Maelstrom by ship are met with a living vortex, a whirlpool of mythic proportion. It pulls intruders into the deep with an almost sentient hunger. For those that brave it, the spiral leads to a revelation. The fortress itself clings to a ridge between tectonic jaws, carved into basalt and shelled in shimmering nacre. Its halls spiral downward like the coils of a leviathan's spine, each chamber reinforced with magics older than present, a tribute to the time of Ostoria, the kingdom of the giants that stretched over all of Faerun. Geysers, air shells, and arcane gravity allow those favoured by the giants to breathe and walk. But even they feel the gnaw of pressure, as though the ocean resents each breath stolen within its depths. Within Maelstrom, the walls sing. Currents hum through vaulted halls. Doors have no locks, responding only to chimes known by blood of a storm giant or a similarly bonded artifact. Some chambers open to air, others to the sea, and some to dreams. Treasures are held in giant clams of pearl and clouds that line the reef above, bioluminescent glyphs etched into coral recount wars no one remembers, except for the seers of giant kind. The Wormskull throne itself rests at Maelstrom's core, upon a pedestal of pressure-forged stone, flanked by spiraling conches that carry the voice of the Storm King to every vault. No mortal may sit upon it and remain unchanged, and yet, every minute spent unwarded beneath its weight threatens flesh and soul alike. Water pressure becomes a sentient trial, crushing those unblessed or unprepared. Without a divine enchantment, artifact-bound vessels, or ancestral protection, mortals will be undone by the very expectation of the deep. Still, legends speak of shipwrecks pulled into Maelstrom's embrace, of lone adventurers who walked the spiral halls and emerged with eyes glowing with revelation. To reach Maelstrom is to wager one's life for a single answer: what occurred within giant kind? What are the secrets of Ostoria, and who won the 1,000-year war between dragon and giant kind? When the dust of Anarok settled and the last winds of the fallen worm curled skyward in silence, it was not only a dragon that had died. It was an age of forgetfulness and complacency. Imrith's schemes had crumbled, and Hecaton, once shackled in silence, took his place once again upon the throne. The mortal four, Magna, Jinzik, Vexira, and Thorn, vanished as all legends do into mist and retelling. Some say Magna returned to the mountains, where new giants rose to test their strength, that Jinzik's name was etched into the halls of Candlekeep, and that his storm-forged devices still hum in vaults, deep and secret. That Thorn wandered with the tide, a whisper in the reeds, a shepherd to the drowned. And that Vexira, she walks still, her patron telling stories into the abyss. But their names remain, carved into coral, and sung by cloud chimes in the halls of Maelstrom. And in that throne beneath the sea, the Wormskull throne shines once more. Sarissa rules now beside her father. Her sisters, chastened by the cost of pride, serve as wardens of sky and tide, guardians of what was nearly lost. The court of storm giants speaks again, with purpose. They remember the folly of stillness, that wisdom unacted is wasted, and that even the deepest current can shift with a single stone. The Ordning had shattered. Anam's message had been heard by giant kind, and when Anam the All-Father looks once more upon his children, he will not see giants who walk alone, or those who walk blind. He will see a revelation, that storms, cataclysms, convulsions of nature, however mysterious and lawless at first sight they may seem, are only harmonious notes in the song of creation. Storm giants are the wielders of this paradox, and they now bring harmony to giant kind. And now, storm giants offer a glimpse of wisdom to the small folk. They speak of purpose, of action with restraint, and that life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain.